So in our last video, we were trying to determine if we were going to do the transmission work ourselves or not, and we decided that we would do the transmission work. So in order to do that, we had to pull out our galley sink and the engine to get to the transmission, and I'll let Steve tell you how that worked.
Well, first of all, in order to get access to pull the engine out, we had to take out the galley cabinets, and in order to take out the galley cabinets, we had to take out the stove. I think we talked about that in our last video. But anyway, we took out the stove, we took out the cabinets. When we took the cabinets out, we realized that there was some rotting wood and some weird, like it looked like there was a leak at some point. So that's a separate project. So we have our galley cabinet, sink, faucet, all that stuff sitting in the garage at home. We'll have to do that after we take care of the transmission. So we had to take all that stuff out before we could even get close to pulling the engine out. So this is the way our boat looks now, with all of our crap spread all over it. And there is what used to be our galley, with the stove missing and the cabinets missing. We took everything out to access the engine compartment there, so that we can take the engine out when it comes to that point. And our galley cabinetry, we're just going to take it home because we discovered some wood issues, and see if we can fix that at a later date. So this is what it looked like when we took the galley cabinets out. The left side of the cabinet was kind of rotting. We noticed, and then when we took it out, there's a lot of stuff right there where it looks like there was some sort of water leak. We think the water leak has been repaired because we haven't noticed anything right there. And during the survey, the surveyor noticed, but he said it was just cosmetic, no big deal. And behind that screwed up wood right there is just fiberglass. So structurally it's all sound. It's really is just cosmetic. So we're going to figure out something to do right there to fix that before we put the cabinets back in.
So in order to pull the engine out, we got a 4x4?
No.
4x2?
No.
2x4?
No. Everything you say adds up to 8. We did some research on the internet and figured out that the best way to do it was to get a piece of wood to go across the companionway and then pull the engine out like that. So the engine, I looked up the stats on the engine, and it weighs 285 pounds. So what we did is we got a 4x6 to put across the companionway, which probably would hold a ton. And then we got a 1-ton chain hoist. And we got some really heavy-duty 2-ton chain and some 2-ton shackles. So everything that we did along the way, we well overdid it, because safety is #1 priority. We don't want an engine falling on our head. We're having to drain the coolant out of the engine block through the little petcock valve, but this is the most convenient way to do it, and the way other people do it. Hold a little bitty tiny cup, fill the cup up, close the petcock, dump in the bucket, and continue until it's all gone. And I'm not sure how much is in there, so hopefully this won't take too awful long. So we're trying to drain the raw water system, and I went to take the zinc pencil out of the heat exchanger, and the screw part came out, but the zinc stayed in the hole. It's not screwed in there, but it's jammed in where it won't come out unless maybe I push it from the inside. But so we're obviously gonna have to get a new one of those. So now to drain the system, I'm having to take the hoses and stuff off, but I don't think that's a big deal because we were going to probably take the heat exchanger off anyway to get the engine out of there, give us a little bit more clearance. So that's what we're doing right now. And it's kind of a pain in the butt. So we removed the flange bolts that connect the shaft to the transmission, and we were able to scoot this shaft back a little over 3 inches. Hopefully this will give us enough clearance to lift the engine up out without having to remove this and slide the shaft back any further, but I think it probably will. We've gotten to the point where we're just down to electrical cables, I believe. At the back of the engine, we don't see anything connected. We took the heat exchanger off. There was 4 hoses for that and so forth. On the starboard side, the fuel lines, some various water hoses and whatnot, nothing connected that side, nothing connected at the front, so it's only on the port side. We labeled every single wire with a number, the color of the wire, and what it's attached to, and we also made notes of that, and we also took pictures with all the where the wires are all connected. So at this point, if we just disconnect all those wires, we should be ready to pull the engine out. Oh, that would go that way, I guess, and this. So we got our bell housing off, and there's our transmission, and there's the damper plate, which we also got one of those, so we're going to replace that as well. So far so good, and we're basically on schedule still. What you doing down there?
Cleaning our dirty bilge.
Yeah, so when we're taking our engine out, we decided it's a good time to clean the bilge, and it doesn't really look that bad. Everything's sparkling clean now. We absorbed up all our spilled antifreeze so we can properly dispose of that, but it looks all nice. Up here we are replacing the damper plate. There's the old damper plate. It doesn't really look all that worn out or anything, but from what I gather, you should probably replace this when you replace the transmission. Otherwise you'll end up doing it anyway, and then you'll just be pissed that you have to take the engine out again. So here's this fancy new shiny one compared to the old rusty one. So new parts can't really be that bad. So I'm going to switch these out, switch the transmission, stick it all back together. So we got the damper plate switched out, and we have the new transmission on the bell housing. I don't know if you can see in there, but there's only 6 bolts that hold it on, so no big deal there. And now we're just going to flip this around, lift the engine up, set this back in there, bolt it back together, and then we're ready to put the engine back on the boat. So one of the really super cool things that happened in this process is that when we had the engine out, we decided to replace the oil filter. And when we replaced the oil filter, we took the old one off and put the new one on. Little did we realize that when we did that, that the rubber ring from the old oil filter was still attached to the engine. So we attached the new oil filter with the old ring still on there. So we had 2 rings. And the really fun part about that is when you turn the engine on, it immediately just starts blowing oil all over the place. And within 1 minute, it will shoot all of the oil in your engine directly into your bilge and all over the place. So we put a gallon of oil directly into our bilge, which is super fun, because then you have to clean it up because you can't really shoot that out into the water. So we have made an emergency trip to the shop to get a new filter, which turns out that we didn't need, and another gallon. We actually bought 2 gallons of oil just in case something horrible went down. So that was fun and exciting. If you've never poured a gallon of oil into your bilge, I highly recommend it. It's super fun to clean up.
No.
No?
No.
You don't like?
No.
But it only took you like an hour and a half to clean it up.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, so maybe don't do that. I recommend it just because it looked fun. We had a couple of drips here and there on the hoses after we stuck them back on, but that was just a matter of a hose clamp not being tight enough. So after it was all said and done, we got everything back together and we started the engine. And not only did the engine immediately start up, which we were shocked at because, you know, like we said, we don't really know anything. I'm not a marine engine technician, are you?
I am now.
Yeah, you are now. You're just as good as those other guys. So anyway, it started right up immediately. Even after the oil spillage, we fixed that. Started right up. Click the engine into reverse. Bing bang, everything's cool. Put it in forward. Immediately goes into forward. It immediately starts pushing the boat exactly like it's supposed to. So we're super stoked about having a new transmission. It's not a new transmission. I should say that. So we did not get a new transmission. We got a rebuilt transmission on eBay. And the reason we did that is because a new transmission from Catalina Direct is around $2,600, and we don't want to pay that. So we got a new zinc pencil. We were able to get the other piece out, but it's taking the end off and popping it out with our finger. We got that in, and we also replaced the gaskets on either end of this. And when we started shining the light through it, we could see crap stuck in there. So we got a what's that thing called? A coat hanger. We got a coat hanger and jammed it down through there and got a bunch of crud out. And then we realized that there's a bunch of little black rubber impeller pieces in there. So we used some compressed air and ran water through it and used coat hanger. Got it nice and clean, so it should be more efficient than it was before. So now we just got to put this back in and we'll be ready to test this bad boy. So to bleed the freshwater coolant system, the manual tells you to do it using a petcock and leaving the cap off and running RPMs and all this kind of stuff. But what I read was if you take this hose off of the bottom of the thermostat and then you fill it up here through a funnel into this tube, it goes through this hose to the hot water heater, back out of the hot water heater, back up to the water pump, and then through a hose to the heat exchanger, through the heat exchanger, out another water hose, and then goes to the manifold. So the concept is once it fills up the manifold and it goes through this small tube here, it will start dripping out of the nipple on the thermostat, and that way you know there's no air bubbles in the system. Put the hose back on, it's completely bled, burped, whatever you want to call it, and ready to go. So that's what we're going to do. Every time I make a video I say that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that right now. It's time to do that. So the last thing we got to do is put our exhaust riser jacket on. The other one, the old one, looked like an ace bandage, and this one looks more like Gilligan's Island when they had the radioactive meteorite and they had to put on those lead costumes, and it goes on the exhaust riser there. Can you see that if you zoom down or? Yeah. Okay, so it goes on here like this, and it has stainless steel bands to put it around there, and the function of that is to keep the panels from burning. I don't remember if we showed that or not, but the old panel has this burn mark here because it sits on there like that, and that exhaust riser gets hot enough to burn this. So we'll put that on there. It'll protect this, and I think that's the last step before everything is completely ready to go. Short of the cabinetry, which is a separate project. We have that in our garage at the house, so we'll have to do that in a different video. So we're gonna clamp this damn thing on and call it a day. So we got everything put back together, started the engine, started right up on the first turn. We checked for leaks, we don't see any, so at this point I think we're gonna call it a win.
Well, it's pretty nice to know that we could do it ourselves.
Right. We gained a whole lot of experience along the way. I mean, I would say I don't know anyone that has ever pulled an engine out of a sailboat, but I don't know anyone really that has a sailboat, so it's ridiculous to say that. But if somebody ever needed to do something like that, I know how to do it now. And we were pretty proud of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were thinking it was like super scary and it just looked intimidating, and we're like, screw it. You know, the only way you're gonna learn is to just dig in there and do it. So we just jumped right in, and we did. We should be proud of ourselves. We did good.
Yay us.
Yeah, yay! So, to put a cap on all this, or to put a bookend here, it is January, and the weather is cold, so I don't know necessarily that we're going to be able to go sailing for a month or two, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know, but that being the case, we're probably going to call this the end of season 1, quote unquote. And then whenever we are able to go sailing again, because the weather agrees, we will maybe, you know, at that point call it season 2, and kind of take it from there. We don't know how long that's going to be. It could be a week. It could be a month. It could be 2 months. You just kind of at the mercy of the weather. So whenever the weather is right, and we can go sailing again, we will.
And we'll be back.
And we will be back at that point in time. And
So don't forget to subscribe so you'll know when our next video is
yeah, if you don't subscribe, you won't know when the next season starts. It might be tomorrow. It probably won't be. But you never know. You literally never. Even when you know, you never know. So smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.